ArlingtonHeightsHeatingandCooling.net. That's Carrie at 847-545-1700 or online at ArlingtonHeightsHeatingandCooling.net. The original Arlington Heights Heating and Cooling, not the biggest, just the best.
Portions of the following show may be pre-recorded.
AM 560, The Answer. If we want to preserve our constitutional republic, we need an informed and educated citizenry. And that's what this show is all about. Find out what's really happening. It's time to stop the lies and learn the truth. This is The Real Story with your host, Jeannie Ives.
Welcome. Thanks for joining me this Sunday night. We are live. We are broadcasting from our Elk Grove Village studios here, and I've got Paul, my producer, in with me. Paul, thanks so much for covering tonight. I appreciate that. This is a full show. I'm looking forward to getting back in the groove. I spent 2 weeks up in Alaska playing grandma. It was awesome. Of course, got a brand new grandchild up there, so I went up there to help out with the 2-year-old as well, and really enjoyed myself. But you know what? In the process, boy, in 2 weeks, how about all the news that came out in 2 weeks? I mean, just a plethora of it, and probably some of the biggest news being, of course, that Dick Durbin has now resigned. He has announced that he is not going to be running again for the U.S. Senate. That opens up the field on the Democrat side big time. And, of course, J.B. Pritzker has already come out and endorsed his Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton for that position. I can't think of a worse pick, personally. Well, maybe there is a worse pick, and maybe that's because Rod Blagojevich says, hey, maybe I'll run as a MAGA Republican. Now, let's just hope that that's a complete joke and a complete put on, because he would be a disaster. I mean, you've got a lot of Republicans that seem to be in love with Rod. And in fact, he's made quite a number of rounds on the speaking circuit at Republican events around the state. And certainly he knows President Trump. President Trump pardoned him for all of his 17 crimes, including many of them felonies, including shaking down a children's hospital. I just don't understand how Republicans can forget these types of details about Rod Blagojevich and actually get enthused and excited about it. I saw some of it. I saw some of these comments on Facebook. Rod Blagojevich, yeah, he'd be a great answer for the Republican Party to put up in the state of Illinois. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I mean, we're still paying off the pension debts that he incurred when he went and borrowed $10 billion to pay down pensions, and yet siphoned off a couple billion just to go for, funding that he wanted to have done. That's what he did. And, I mean, the guy's just, he's a cartoon character, in my opinion. I've never really been a fan. Some people want to argue, well, he was given a really lengthy sentence, and this is nothing more than what anybody else has done. And certainly that's probably the case. I mean, I think that is true. I think that the Democrats, I think Rod Blagojevich probably believes still to this day that he did nothing wrong. He did nothing more than what everybody else had done, except that he got convicted on 18 counts. There were 2 trials. The first trial ended up hung jury on most of the counts, except for one, lying to the FBI, which apparently it happens all the time. Certainly a lot of people have been caught up in that trap to some degree. But then they had a second trial, and he got convicted on 17 counts and put away. So people who think that he's going to be the answer to the Republican Party in the state of Illinois, I would argue 100% against that. Talk about making the Republican Party even a bigger laughingstock. It would be to actually support and nominate somebody like Rod Blagojevich. And go ahead, you folks who think are just in love with Rod Blagojevich, come at me. I don't care. Light up the phone boards, whatever. We'll have a discussion about Rod Blagojevich and his record. It's appalling. It's disgusting, from financial to cultural to ethics, you name it. And, that falls right in line with J.B. Pritzker. Don't forget how cozy he was with J.B. Pritzker. Just because we need to reintroduce these people to a new audience who have fallen back in love with Rod Blagojevich, I did pull that wiretap conversation. Here you go. Here it is again. so people don't forget. This is Rod Blagojevich talking to J.B. Pritzker about clouding him into some sort of position. Because remember, Rod Blagojevich, I've got this thing and it's blanking golden. Meaning that he could sell the Senate seat for a position for himself, maybe for some campaign money, who knows what. But yeah, it's time to reintroduce this whole conversation that has been played. I'm sure people have heard it again, but sometimes you have to remind them of exactly who J.B. Pritzker is and exactly who Rod Blagojevich is.
I'm calling you about, I think you appoint his replacement, don't you?
Ooh, interesting. Let's think about that. You interested in that?
Yeah, that's the one I would want.
How about this scenario?
It makes a lot of sense.
Listen, you extremely open-minded on that thing. But don't rule yourself out completely on that Senate thing. That may not be... Look, you ought to see this list, huh?
I'm sure you got, yeah.
I've got a lot of factors to consider. I have to factor, what do I want to do? Where am I?
What do I want to do?
At some point I've got to support, provide for my family. In a perfect world, provide for your family, do good, keep some sort of viability, and get back in the game at some point, if there's any opportunity, but not at this level. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If the Senate thing ever happened for you, my strong recommendation would be you got to do it and say you're running again. If you know, putting a guy like you there for just 2 years, I don't know. I mean,
yeah, I'm not.
Huh? I mean,
I'm thinking about the political problem, and the only way to make the political problem go away in that scenario would be that I can think of is to say he's not running for re-election, which doesn't do anybody any good. So it's probably not a good scenario.
No.
The treasurer thing's a different thing.
Yeah.
Oh, he wants to be treasurer instead, J.B.
That's a good
Pritzker.
option. Keep going.
That's a great option.
Putting a business person in a business person's job.
Yep.
I think I would be able to get people like Bill Brodsky at the CBOE and people like Terry Duffy at the at the Merck to sort of stand up independently and say, we're putting, we're suggesting to the governor that this is a good idea. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Listen, I think it's exciting.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's that little convo between J.B. Pritzker and Rod Blagojevich. And so Durbin, literally one of the most awful Democrats in leadership in the U.S. Senate. Let's say, he was number two in leadership in the U.S. Senate, and he could not keep the crazies away. They have taken over, and he has said nothing. He has fallen in, voted against the Lake and Riley Act, doesn't think you need voter ID to vote, is all in to let the illegal invasion occur. Didn't say anything about that. Spends like we can, we've got trillions to burn. During his tenure in the U.S. Senate is when we've racked up, trillions of dollars in debt. I didn't pull the actual numbers, but I'm thinking that probably during his tenure is when we've racked up probably $20 trillion in debt, maybe 25, because we're about 37 trillion now. Yeah, all under Dick Durbin. This is a guy who speaks in reasonable tones and says the most unreasonable things. And then people think he's a statesman. It's laughable. So, outside of the Dick Durbin, I'm not running anymore. And by the way, Jan Schakowsky isn't running anymore, which is very interesting as well. She's hanging up her cleats, getting off the playing field. Don't know why, but more than likely that seat goes to a very progressive Democrat. I don't know who we're going to have on the Republican side to run for that 9th district, but hopefully we get somebody good. I think there's opportunity. Maybe not in the 9th, but there's certainly opportunity elsewhere because the Democrats are a disaster. And J.B. Pritzker, just forget it. He has completely abandoned Illinois so that he can just go ahead and talk about national politics. That's what he wants to talk about. That's where his heart is. That's where, make no mistake about it. JB is running in 2028. It's because the headlines that he's grabbing are all at the national level. And he's playing to a very, very progressive base at this point. He's not like a Gavin Newsom who has said, well, you know what, maybe women shouldn't be in girls' sports. And in fact, we're going to talk about that in my next segment. I'm going to talk about the cowards at the Illinois High School Association who essentially fell in line with J.B. Pritzker and said, oh yeah, we're all in about the transgender in sports in the state of Illinois. They're going to stand up to Trump about this. So we'll be talking about that. But back to Governor Pritzker. Look, I mean, he's had a couple of idiotic statements this weekend. First of all, he says he's going to punish El Salvador for holding the MS-13 gang member who Trump deported. You know, that Abrego Garcia. Mm-hmm. And in fact, what he has done is he has ordered now a boycott of El Salvador. In his press release, it says Governor J.B. Pritzker announced a series of measures against El Salvador. Do we have a lot of trade with El Salvador? I don't know. What do we get? Maybe do we get bananas from them? I have no idea. In response to its role in aiding the Trump administration's defiance of court orders and violations of due process. I'm sorry, when you crossed illegally, you didn't follow due process, and the Democrats don't be concerned about that. And then his press release goes on to say, as laid out in the 5th and 14th Amendments of the United States Constitution, no one should be deprived of life and liberty without due process of the law. He's not a citizen. You just can't make it up. All right, I guess we are headed to break here shortly. So I'm going to go to break. I'm going to tidy up this conversation, this press release from Governor Pritzker about,
Hey, Chicago, it's me, Larry Elder, the sage from South Central, the great Eldersky, Don Lorenzo, and I want you to join me along with Dan Proft and Sean Thompson for AM 560's upcoming cigar nights on May 21st and 22nd. I'm looking forward to meeting all of you and sitting down to talk about everything that's been happening during the first 100 days of the Trump administration. Get your tickets today at 560theanswer.com/cigar. That's 560theanswer.com/cigar. And I'll see you on May 21st and 22nd.
Hut, hut. Listen up and listen up good. If you're tired of run-of-the-mill gifts, then get on over to aviatorfuel.com. You'll find unique military-style cocktail books and barware to go with it. At aviatorfuel.com, we've got the perfect gift for any soldier, sailor, Marine, or just red-blooded American. You'll especially love our military cocktail checklists, modeled off the real Army, Navy, and Marine pilot checklists that military aviators have used for decades. These award-winning books are authentic replicas, but instead of a procedure on how to handle an engine fire, you'll find the procedure for how to make a mojito, written with military jargon throughout. So pick up a cocktail checklist from aviatorfuel.com. Invite some old friends to share war stories over cocktails. Your perfect libation is inside the cocktail checklist. And don't forget matching military-themed barware. Go to aviatorfuel.com and get ready to raise a glass to the brave men and women who serve our country. That's aviatorfuel.com.
Living with chronic joint pain is like trying to get comfortable on a cactus sofa. Ouch! Nothing feels good. And forget trying to do the things you enjoy this spring, like golfing, hiking, tennis. Hi, Amy Jacobson here, and I want you to know something. Dr. Ashley Caravelli and the medical pros at QC Kinetics here in Chicago are on the case. I spoke to my friend in Utah who had regenerative medicine with QC Kinetics, and now she does not need that right hip replacement. Seriously, listen up. If you have joint pain in your knees, hips, shoulders, back, with QC Kinetics, the science is solid. They give you back your life without surgery, without drugs, and without any downtime. If you're curious if you're a candidate for these treatments, no problem. The consultation is free with appointments on Saturdays. Now's the best time to get started. Call QC Kinetics at 312-809-5955. That's 312-809-5955. 312-809-5955. QC Kinetics.
Have you heard a lot of buzz about tariffs?
No.
Really?
What's a tariff?
It's a tax on imported goods.
Well, I've never heard of tariffs because 92.3% of Penny Mustard's furniture is made in the USA.
True.
In fact, most of it is built by local craftsmen and women right here in the Midwest.
And locally sourced furniture will never have a tariff on it.
Can we talk about this later? I'm tired of hearing about these tariffs.
So I guess you can say that all this talk about tariffs is taxing.
PennyMustard.com.
Don't miss this once-in-a-lifetime adventure. Set sail August 16th through the 23rd on the Patriots Alaska Cruise with me, Larry Elder, Mike Gallagher, plus special guests Jennifer Horn and Joe Piscopo. Experience breathtaking glaciers, fjords, and wildlife, all while diving into critical discussions about America's future with today's top political voices. Cabins are going fast. Text TRAVEL to 94878 right now to secure your spot before it's too late. Travel to 94878 right now to secure your spot before it's too late.
We now return to the real story. Here's your host, Jeannie Ives.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining me on The Real Story. Hey, I was just in the middle of telling you about that, threat to El Salvador. Oh, if you don't let Obrego Garcia back, if you don't release him so that we can deport him back to the United States, only to be deported back to El Salvador, because, by the way, he's an El Salvador citizen. We're really worried about this. Governor Pritzker's going to come after you with a boycott. And, what does the boycott include? Evaluate if Illinois pension funds benefit El Salvador. Oh, come on. Come on. What are we investing in down there? I don't know. Number 2, stop procurements from El Salvador. The governor's office is directing the Illinois Central Management Services to launch a procurement review to identify if any state contracts award to companies that are wholly or partially managed, owned, or controlled by the government of El Salvador. Wait a minute. Wholly or partially managed, owned, or controlled by the government of El Salvador? Oh, okay. Established or organized under the laws of El Salvador, whose principals pay some businesses in El Salvador. Okay, so he wants to boycott any state procurements. Oh, and then he's going to analyze trade with El Salvador, not stop trade with El Salvador, analyze it. Conduct a further analysis of trade between Illinois and El Salvador, including the scale and nature of imports from El Salvador. Why doesn't he delineate that? Why isn't it already done? Why isn't in this press release a whole fact sheet? I mean, are they making computer chips down there in El Salvador? Does Intel have some sort of factory down there that we need to be worried about? I mean, what an idiot. But this is your governor. So he's concerned about Obrego Garcia. He's not concerned about the gang members that are shooting up things in Chicago. He's not concerned about the takeover of the city streets of Chicago. He's not concerned about any of that. He's not concerned about the drug flows that come in from various places, probably including El Salvador. No, he's concerned about this. Well, what else is he concerned about? He admonished the Trump administration for arresting the Wisconsin judge who allegedly impeded ICE in the capturing of the criminally illegal who was in her court. Now, if you didn't hear this story, it is absolutely unbelievable what this Wisconsin judge did to harbor an illegal alien and allow him to basically escape ICE custody, except in the end he got caught. I mean, that if you didn't hear the rest of the story, he does get caught. But I mean, the details here matter, and so much hullabaloo has been, voiced by the Democrats saying this is just out of order. This is a lack of due process. Arresting a sitting judge who does this. How can you do this? Oh, by the way, the New Mexico judge who was also actually harboring an illegal in his home, he got arrested too, handcuffed, and he figured it out. He's like, he resigned as a judge because he knew he could not withstand what was coming, so he resigned. Let's hope he gets prosecuted. And I hope this other judge, too. I think it's Hannah Dugan is her name. But, I have enough time. I'm going to read this because it's so important for people to know exactly what happened in this case. So that when your neighbor comes up to you, maybe your sister-in-law who's super liberal says, well, he's just out of control. He arrested a sitting judge. Well, maybe you should know the facts so that you can relay the facts to if it happens to come up in the conversation. And that's part of the problem with many of us, many Republicans. We don't always have the arguments on the tip of our tongue to refute what the other left is saying. And the left loves to just talk, and they'll say whatever they hear without actually knowing the facts behind it. So I'm going to read to you exactly what happened. And this came from Jeff Childers. He has a absolutely awesome daily email. You can sign up at, just go to Jeff Childers. If you Google him, you'll find it. But this was in his Saturday email, and he succinctly put together the details of what happened in Hannah Dugan's court. Listen to this. In case you somehow missed the excitement, here's what actually happened. About 8 days ago, back in April 18th, Milwaukee Circuit Court Judge Hannah Dugan was presiding over an unremarkable criminal case involving a Mexican national charged with 3 counts of battery and domestic abuse. A couple of his victims were seated in the gallery waiting to testify. The accused, Jose Flores Ruiz, was an illegal alien already deported in 2013, but it didn't stick and he came back to commit more crimes. Because of all the media information, this is Jeff Childers writing, here's a link to the government's complaint so you can read it for yourself. Note that a federal judge signed Judge Dugan's arrest warrant. She had ample due process. Oh, by the way, she did have due process. She was arrested with a federal warrant. Or if you're more into listening, you can listen to Pam Bonnie's. Okay. Anyway, before Flores Ruiz hearing started, court staff snuck word to Judge Dugan that FBI, CBP, and DEA agents had staked out the gallery and the hallway outside the courtroom and were waiting for the hearing to finish so they could arrest Lopez. This enraged the judge. So she sprang up, or at least attempted to, a rough approximation of springing up. She's a very heavy woman. He's just being funny there. And moved ponderously into action. She first adjourned the hearing, grabbed the judge in the courtroom next door for backup, and after demanding to see the agent's warrant, ordered them to go to the chief judge's office. They complied. While agents were on the phone with the chief judge, Judge Dugan's courtroom deputy came over and warned them the judge was trying to push through Lopez's hearing to get him out of the building while the agents were tied up talking to the chief judge. Meanwhile, back in her courtroom, Judge Dugan ordered Lopez and his attorney to come up to the bench, and after a frenzied, whispered conversation, personally escorted them out the courtroom's private back door reserved for jurors and prisoners. Lopez fled using a back elevator and sprinted off down 9th Street. Fortunately, an alert agent spotted the serial crime doer leaving. The team scrambled and a dramatic foot chase ensued. They finally tackled Lopez near State Street and 10th. Yesterday morning, the FBI filed a federal complaint and shortly thereafter arrested Judge Dugan at the courthouse. She's charged with obstruction of ICE proceedings and harboring or concealing a person to prevent discovery and arrest, both serious felonies. The federal criminal complaint identifies several witnesses who saw everything that happened. Later in the day, Judge Dugan was released without bond after making her first appearance in federal court. If convicted, she certainly can't be a judge and will probably lose her law license. Even without a verdict, the pending charges are a huge headache for the chief judge. And then Childers asked the question, how can Judge Dugan continue to preside over other criminal cases while she's under indictment herself? I mean, this is ridiculous. This is about, you cannot even make this up. But the idea that Pritzker thinks this is wrong. He thinks it's absolutely wrong that the judge was arrested. But I mean, he's a lawless man himself. He could care less about the law. It doesn't matter to him. You see, I'm going to go boycott El Salvador for, not letting them, a 13 gang member, come out of prison, come back to the United States, have its quote unquote due process. He didn't even have didn't care about due process coming over. I mean, this is the state of the Chicago Democrats. And these are the things that Pritzker's concerning himself with. Not the budget, not anything else. He's letting just basically Don Harmon and his princes down there handle stuff while he continues to play national politics and play to a national political progressive crowd, hoping that, maybe with his money and his progressive bona fides, he can actually maybe get the nomination. That would be a coup d'etat for him to be nominated for president for the Democrat Party. They would absolutely be insane to do so. I mean, his record is absolutely pathetic. I mean, let's not forget exactly who this guy is, right? Under J.B. Pritzker, first in the nation to pass the Safety Act, which has been a complete debacle, by the way. First in the nation to pass a book ban law, another stupid law. First in the nation to end a school choice program. He's got extreme cultural policies. Trans right is human's right, according to J.B. Pritzker. He actively pursues abortion businesses. He recently has IHSA ruled that boys have a right to participate in girls' sports. He's enshrined union workers as a protected class in our state constitution. We have the worst state and local combined pension problem in the country. And he's made it worse, and he's about ready to make it worse if he changes Tier 2 back to Tier 1. We have the highest property taxes, and Chicago is by far the worst-run large city in the United States. And he plans on running with this record? You've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. But they're doubling down on it. Very quickly, and I'll come back to this if I have time later in the program, but you've got Dan Tully, the IHSA president. He refuses to protect women's sport. They issued a letter to Republican lawmakers stating that they will not comply with President Trump's executive order aimed at protecting female sports from the participation of biological males who identify as women. He claims that following the directive would conflict with the Illinois Human Rights Act. I think I've discussed that enough, but they actually allow private spaces to be private. I don't know about sports. That is probably different, but Congresswoman Mary Miller, to her credit, great. She's having none of it. She's calling for federal Title IX investigations. Good for her. That's a start. But, Dan Tully, I believe he also is affiliated with Notre Dame High School, a Catholic high school. He's not the only coward. IHSA president, he's not the only coward. All the other Catholic League schools that have to compete in the IHSA, they're cowards too. Until they speak up against this, I'm putting them in the coward column. We'll be right back. I've got a great interview with Mayor FioRito about the upcoming conclave in Rome.
Hugh Hewitt agrees with the president's actions on his alma mater.
I approve and applaud the Trump administration's decision to go high and hard at Harvard University as a means of setting a minimum requirement that universities and colleges comply with the Constitution of the United States and the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
The Hugh Hewitt Show, afternoons at 2, right before Sean Thompson at 4 on AM 560. The Answer.
Maloney, 11 people dead after an SUV plowed into a festival crowd Saturday night in Vancouver, Canada. Police are holding a suspect.
That male was taken into custody at the scene by the crowd. It was a Filipino community event.
Vancouver Acting Police Chief Stephen Rye. President Trump expressing doubts that Russian President Putin wants a peace deal with Ukraine, but talks do continue.
President Trump is determined to use diplomacy to bring this war to an end, to talk to both sides. And just in 100 days, we've had multiple rounds led by Secretary of State Rubio, by Ambassador Steve Witkoff in Saudi Arabia.
National Security Advisor Michael Walsh on Fox's Sunday Morning Futures. America is listening to Fox News.
Don't miss Destination Retirement with Robert Kuhn every Sunday from 11 to 12. Robert has a different way of looking at retirement from most financial advisors and is happy to share his ideas with you every week. So don't miss what he has to say on AM 560 The Answer. Destination Retirement with Robert Kuhn, Sunday mornings from 11 to 12.
Come on with this, people. Move it!
Did you really think you could make that company deliver yourself?
Oh, I cannot handle any more traffic.
You could be getting much more done at your place of business.
I've wasted 45 minutes and now this place is gonna close.
Time is money. Let Quick Delivery Service take on the traffic hassle for you. They'll deliver almost anything, from large pallets of materials to important documents, or both. No forms, no labels, no scanning. Just tell Quick Delivery Service where it's going, they'll pick it up, and get it to your destination quickly. Your cargo delivery is tracked in real time with GPS. Notifications are delivered right to your inbox. Visit QuickDelivery.com. That's QuickDelivery.com. Or you can deliver like this.
Seriously, another train?
Or get your delivery there on time with QuickDelivery.com. Or call 847-534-2244. 847-534-2244.
Imagine using your skills and experiences to inspire young minds. We see the teacher in you. No matter your starting point, we can help you become a teacher. Teaching offers consistent pay, a pension, and summers off. Learn how you can be the teacher. Visit BeTheTeacher.org. Sponsored by Grow Your Own Teachers, Illinois.
Did you know that AM 560 Radio has a full-service digital marketing division called Salem Surround? If you're a business decision maker, listen up. AM 560 listeners are everywhere your potential audience is. So are our incredible targeting capabilities. We localize digital marketing and put it within reach of every business, small and large, in Chicagoland and beyond. Salem Surround offers AI-powered marketing solutions that reach your ideal audience. Whether or not you tap into the proven live, local, and emotional connection that AM 560 Radio brings, Salem Surround offers a total marketing solution to our partners. All-in-one digital solutions that provide targeted local digital and social media ads, Google AdWords management, website services, video strategy, search optimization, and even a management dashboard to offer you total campaign updates and transparency. Your Salem Surround representative is located right here in Chicago. Experience the Salem Surround digital revolution today. Call 847-472-8951. That's 847-472-8951.
Hi, I'm Ken Mariotti, owner of Woodland Windows and Doors, a third-generation family-owned business since 1969. We know you're bombarded by choices when shopping for new windows or doors, so we're inviting you to experience the Woodland difference. For decades, we have been transforming living spaces with Marvin Windows, a fifth-generation family business. Marvin replacement windows have been known to increase the warmth of your cold rooms by 10 degrees. Think about that, 10 degrees warmer. When you welcome Woodland into your home, you will get a product expert to transform your living spaces, full-time, dedicated professional installers that you can trust in your home, along with the best products like Marvin. These are the reasons we're proud of our 5-star reviews and family legacy. No gimmicks, no pressure, and upfront pricing are why Woodland Windows and Doors is your trusted window and door expert in Chicagoland. Visit woodlandwindows.com to book your free in-home expert consultation. That's woodlandwindows.com, or stop by our showroom at the corner of Lake and Geary in Roselle.
The Real Story with Jeannie Ives continues on AM 560. The Answer.
Bishop Robert Barron is the founder of Word on Fire Catholic Ministries, is the Bishop of Winona, Rochester, Minnesota Diocese. Your Excellency, thank you for the time. I'd love to start, if you would, about what you see as the legacy of the Pope and this Pope and what it means for the Church.
I think he was the Pope of mercy. You know, from the very beginning of his papacy, he presented the face of the merciful God. And I think in a way you could read him in tandem with John Paul II, who called people to heroic sanctity, put a great stress upon, being a saint. And I think Pope Francis was there for all of us who fall short of that ideal and need the face of God's mercy. I love the fact that he compared the church to a field hospital, which means there are a lot of walking wounded around. And the church will be a place where they're received with generosity and with welcome. So I think that's maybe the principal leitmotif of his papacy. The other one being the church that goes out from itself. He gave a speech before he was elected Pope where he made that observation. I think it's why he was elected. The church doesn't look in, but goes out to the world in a generous, welcoming spirit. I think that was his style.
Well, that was one interpretation of Pope Francis's life. There's been quite a few. He's not a pope without controversy, to say the least. Joseph Strickland, the Texas bishop who was removed by Pope Francis in November of 2023, said he feared progressives within the conclave would choose another liberal pontiff to lead the next chapter of the Catholic Church. He wrote on his X account, "We must pray and fast. The cardinals have the future of humanity in their hands." So you've got a number of people who have weighed into that. There's been a lot of journalism about Pope Francis's tenure, and certainly there'll be more about his legacy. Well, here to discuss it all, right before she heads to Rome herself for the conclave, where she will be reporting on the conclave, here we have Mary Hallan FioRito. She's the Ethics and Public Policy Center Cardinal Francis George Fellow. She's also a licensed attorney in Illinois, a public speaker, and a radio show and podcast host herself. Mary, thank you so much for joining me just ahead of your trip to Rome. What would you say about these varying opinions about Pope Francis at this moment in time?
Well, I think the fact that you have, Jeannie, people on both ends of the spectrum commenting as they did, is that the Pope, while a very good man who I know loved the church, loved the Lord, really tried to serve the Lord in the best way that he knew how, was also a person who wasn't particularly precise with his language, especially theological language. And, he was the first pope from South America. He was the first Jesuit pope, which is a religious order that is largely focused on teaching. They're largely a teaching order, and they run colleges and universities like Gonzaga and Georgetown and Loyola. So he came with a very different type of what we would call priestly formation. And he didn't have, really advanced training in theology and philosophy like Pope Benedict would have had, or like Cardinal George had, right? So his training was different, and therefore he wouldn't have used language with the precision that, say, Pope Benedict XVI did with, there was probably nothing that he didn't write down and analyze before he would, say it or use it in a homily or something like that. So there's that old saying from St. Thomas Aquinas, grace builds on nature. And so nature in the person of Pope Francis, was sort of a temperamental South American man who was known to have sort of a fierce heart in a very beautiful way for people who were marginalized, especially the poor. You know, having been the Archbishop of Buenos Aires, he saw a lot of poverty. He grew up in a very sort of repressive political environment. So he brought all of that with him. And I think sometimes tended to apply it to perhaps situations where it wasn't really applicable, if that makes sense.
Well, let's just stop there for just a real quick moment, because last week I had the opportunity to interview Brian Birch, who has been nominated to be the ambassador to the Holy See and more than likely will be confirmed. And he was talking about the fact that the Holy See is not just about the Catholic Church. It is actually its own sort of country. It's identified that way.
Right.
And when you think about it in those terms, certainly Ronald Reagan identified his relationship with Pope John Paul II and that of Margaret Thatcher. And those three are famously known to have brought down the Soviet Union. They're at least they're credited with that.
Oh, right. No, they were the three-legged stool that brought down communism, for sure.
So his Pope John Paul II's approach to the political environment when it came to communism and dealing with the poor was quite different than, I would say, Pope Francis. And the Wall Street Journal opined about this, as a matter of fact. They said Pope Francis was best known for urging concern for the poor in the best Christian tradition. And that is absolutely true. Mm-hmm. He called for a clergy of shepherds who have the smell of their sheep. That is, priests and nuns who shared the suffering of their neighbors. He made support for the weakest among us the rhetorical centerpiece of his papacy. He brought a public informality and an openness to the Vatican. Alas, Pope Francis believed ideologies that kept the poor in poverty. And so there's a difference there on how they recognized what would be best for the poor.
Right. And so he was very well-meaning in that regard, right?
Yes.
And I think particularly for us as Americans, I think it was helpful. I know for me personally, in my own walk of faith, it was helpful for me as an American who has a lot of privileges just by virtue of my birth, to be made aware of the poverty in third world countries that we see. You know, there was a papal nuncio who came to visit after Hurricane Katrina and who was viewing parts of New Orleans afterwards, et cetera, et cetera. And you know, he commented on the poverty in some areas of New Orleans that were very badly hurt and didn't get the services that they needed right away. And he said, you know, it is shocking to me that I see this kind of poverty in the United States. But those were people that were sort of out of sight and out of mind, right? And I think that's one of the things that Pope Francis did very well, is to bring those people right into our direct sight so that we could be there and try to be Christ to them. So I think, again, I think he was very well-meaning, but he wasn't a trained economist, right? So he didn't have the kind of understanding nor the international experience to understand that some of the things that many people would think would help the poor actually wind up harming them. But he hadn't been given that kind of information that would have helped him. And I'm disappointed that others in the Holy See didn't seem to make efforts to help him understand that, what the view of conservatives in terms of economic policy that really could have involved structural changes that would have given the poor the ability to help themselves in many regards.
Well, when you think about it, he did seem to be a pope who did serve out Christ's work in reality, in the flesh. You know, really serving the poor like Christ would have him, almost a
like a fraternal,
yes.
or fraternal. You know, he very much saw himself as their father.
Yes. And you know, at the same time, I think that he came in at a time when the church had financial scandal that he had to deal with.
Right.
They had the sexual abuse scandal that he had to deal with. And even in the financial scandal world, it appears that he was usurped in his efforts by the bureaucracy of the Vatican. I mean, this is a vast organization with a lot of wealth that needs to be managed and taken care of. And it didn't seem to me like that was of his interest or his skill set whatsoever.
Oh, probably more the latter, Jeannie, that it just wasn't his skill set. And it is said to be one of the reasons that Pope Benedict XVI resigned, because he knew there was mismanagement going on. He knew he wasn't capable of handling it properly and thought it is best that I turn this over to a younger successor who will be able to deal with this in a head-on way that I'm not capable of doing anymore because of my age and some of my, disabilities that come with age. So I don't almost fault the Holy Father for that, but, when you accept that role, you have to be willing to do all the hard parts as well. And if you don't know how to do them, right, like any good leader, you find someone you trust, a trustworthy person who understands your particular philosophy, and get that person to help you do it.
Well, Marianne Glendon, writing in First Things, addressed this whole thing, saying that she was actually part of the commission that was to look into the bank officials. They interviewed a number of the bank officials, 115 of the employees, and they were assured confidentiality. But basically, when Pope Francis brought in Cardinal George Pell to reform the entire financial system, this Australian prelate, according to her writings, was shocked to learn that there was no centralized oversight of Vatican finances. And he was basically pushed out of his position. She believes, they write, that they essentially drummed up some sort of sex scandal to get him out of this.
Yeah.
I mean, is this where our church is?
Well, all the intrigue, and it sounds like it sounds, Jeannie, like it's something from a bad movie plot, but Cardinal George Pell, not Cardinal Francis George, who was from Chicago, Cardinal George Pell from Sydney, Australia, was in fact falsely accused. And with a scenario for the alleged abuse that was just absurd. There's simply no way it could have happened, yet he spent time in prison.
I know, but the Australian authorities overturned that eventually.
Correct. Yes, the Australian Supreme Court overturned it. There wasn't a shred of evidence against him. And he suffered tremendously. And I know people who are very close to him personally, that he returned to Rome. He really wanted to help the Holy See right the ship in terms of the finances and the banking scandals, as that Marianne Glendon piece asserts. And then he died during very routine surgery. And that was just what a loss for the church that was, because he had kind of a very strong personality, but he also had great intellectual capabilities, particularly in this area of management and finance. He was very, very good at it. And it's really a loss for the church. And I think we could have been in a very different place at this point in time had Cardinal Pell not died so suddenly.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Mary FioRito after this break. We want to talk about where's the enthusiasm for the church now? How does the conclave work? And discuss the electoral process to some degree. This is The Real Story with Jeannie Ives. Thanks for joining me tonight. We'll be right back.
Larry Elder here, and I'm excited to tell you about my new movie called Electric Vehicles, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Now, I love my gas-powered car, but I also care about the planet. And so I pose the question, are EVs really better for the planet than gas-powered vehicles?
An electric vehicle is a computer with 4 wheels and some seats.
Torque is instantaneous. The batteries are lasting very long.
Charging at your house using solar is amazing.
What do you do with these batteries when they go bad? Long distance, they create anxiety. Sitting in the parking lot just burst into flames.
The components are made in China, so there could be tracking mechanisms put into Americans' cars.
We're going to be relying on China.
It's not just a movie about cars. It's about how we choose to shape our future and the ethical, environmental, and security issues they create. Electric Vehicles, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, produced by Impactful Pictures. Watch it or buy the DVD now at salemnow.com. That's salemnow.com.
When you hear the term living better, what do you think about? More money, a bigger house, maybe a yacht? What about how you feel physically? How do you wake up each day? How do you sleep during the night? What activities you can and cannot do? When you feel good, life is good. So if pain is affecting your life, see how Relief Factor can help. Relief Factor is a daily supplement that fights pain naturally, developed by doctors. It doesn't just mask pain temporarily. It helps reduce or even eliminate pain. How do I know? Absolutely am a customer. I take Relief Factor daily. No lower back pain for me anymore. In fact, the longer you take it, the more effective it is. Give their 3-week quick start a try. It's only $19.95, less than $1 a day. Just one phone call, 800-4RELIEF, 800-4RELIEF. Relief Factor, relief wherever you're hurting. In 3 weeks or even days, Relief Factor can give you a chance to rediscover the true meaning of living better again. Visit ReliefFactor.com or call 800-4RELIEF. That's 800-4RELIEF for the one and only Relief Factor.
Maha starts with Virago, making America healthy again. With the worst flu season in years, you need an immune system boost. The stronger your immune system, the stronger your body fights and defends against... and... So get Virago. Virago Immune Enhancement Support is a unique blend of 23 nutraceuticals, ingredients that have been available as individual nutraceuticals, but now working in synergy to maximize their effects. Recommended by medical physicians, dentists, and other healthcare professionals, Virago is the nutraceutical cocktail for immune support. Developed to strengthen your immune system for quick response to immune challenges, for short and long-term immunity, antiviral, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant. It even protects your heart, kidneys, liver, all in a unique liquid supplement for better absorption. Order online at myvirago.com. That's myvirago.com. myvirago.com. Use coupon code IMMUNE to save 30%. Quality ingredients for optimum health. Maha. Making America healthy again starts with Virago.
Now, more of The Real Story with your host, Jeannie Ives.
Welcome back. This is The Real Story with Jeannie Ives, and still with me is Ethics and Public Policy Fellow Mary FioRito. She is headed to Rome here shortly to watch over what's happening at the conclave. Mary, could you just tell my listeners, though, exactly what is the entire process like?
Okay, so the conclave itself is actually, it's a liturgical act, believe it or not. So when the 135 cardinals of the Roman Catholic Church who are under the age of 80, you have to be under the age of 80 to vote. So there are more than 200 cardinals alive, but only 135 of them are under the age of 80 and therefore available to vote. So the liturgy itself takes place inside the Sistine Chapel. Each cardinal, as they go in, will take a personal vow that will be publicly broadcast. It's a very moving thing to see each one of them going up and putting their hand on the scriptures and taking a vow that they won't reveal, the contents of the votes or any of the activities that take place within the conclave. So the conclave...
No deliberations, nothing.
No, there are no deliberations inside the Sistine Chapel. Once they go in, the words extra omnes are said, which means everyone out, and everyone but those cardinals go in. And then there's prayer, and then there's a vote. And then there's more prayer, and then there's a vote. And so there are 4 votes a day.
Wait a minute. They don't actually discuss?
No. Not inside the conclave. That's why there are these days, what they call congregation meetings. That's why so many cardinals, in addition to going to the funeral, have already left to go to Rome even before that, because all the discussions and information gathering happens before you go into that conclave. Once they're in there, it's praying and voting and praying and voting, and then breaks for lunch and what have you. But there's 4 votes a day. In order to be elected Pope, the candidate must have 2/3 of the 135. So, and they'll just keep going until they get the 2/3.
So do the cardinals who are above the age of 80, do they also enter the Sistine Chapel just to pray?
No, extra omnes, they're all out. It's only the voting cardinals that may go in. So, it's a very ancient, obviously, and, sort of sacred process for the cardinals, because this is one of the things that only they can do. And theoretically, they could elect any baptized male in the church, but it is, more than likely that it's going to be one of them, one of the 135.
Okay. So some people are saying that Pope Francis essentially has made folks cardinals that are progressive or considered more progressive, like he is considered. I don't know if that's true.
Right, exactly. And, this is one of these things. This is going to be such an interesting conclave, Jeannie, because it is the most diverse group of men that we've ever had in the history of the church. I mean, there are men that have been made cardinals from countries that have never had cardinals before and cities that have never had cardinals before, right? So what we would call a cardinalatial see, that would be a major archdiocese that would have a cardinal. So you have them coming. I mean, right now there's a cardinal in San Diego, which has never had a cardinal before, for example, just to use an example from the United States. So they're coming from places like Ghana and from, Myanmar and just all across the globe. So
how about Cardinal Zen from Hong Kong?
Well, yes.
He's been very outspoken
yes.
about what Francis did in terms of, playing footsie with the Chinese.
Right. And that whole Chinese national church, that's a whole nother show. And I'm not really competent to discuss why the church entered into that agreement with the Chinese Communist government. That is a point of great contention with some of the other.
And for our listeners, that was an agreement about appointing bishops with the Chinese Communist Party approval.
Right, exactly. And that they have a say in who gets named our bishops, which is very unusual. And so we're going to have this incredibly diverse congregation of bishops going into, cardinals rather, to elect the new Holy Father. And he could literally come from a country, no one's ever considered, and it could be a man whose name no one has ever heard. So it's going to be fascinating. It's going to be very interesting to see how long it goes, because most of these men haven't met each other yet.
Okay, well, we only have about a minute left here. So what's your bet on how many votes it takes? Over in a day?
I think my guess, it's probably going to go 3 days, maybe even 4 days. I don't think we're going to see anything on the first day. I doubt very much we'll see anything on the second day. Again, because we have cardinals coming from all over the world, most of whom do not know each other yet. And so there's going to be some time, I think, before a consensus is reached. My understanding is that the African bishops are sort of a very strong bloc, and they are very much in unison. They did not like some of the ambiguous things Pope Francis seems to have said or implied, and they believe that really there needs to be more clarity when the Holy Father speaks. It's certainly always a good thing to discuss different points of view, but when the Pope speaks definitively, that has to be done with clarity so there are not misunderstandings.
All right, we'll leave it right there. Mary Hallan, FioRito.
Okay, all right. Well, I hope I can come back after the election and we'll talk about how things went in Rome.
That would be cool. Thanks so much for joining me on The Real Story, and we'll be right back.
The American military brings together brave men and women from across the country who have chosen to answer the call when their country needs them most. At aviatorfuel.com, we know the military because we live the military life. With books written by a Navy pilot and run by a hard-working military spouse, aviatorfuel.com is proud of our service and our country. That's why we never compromise on authenticity. Our cocktail books are modeled off the real Army, Navy, and Marine pilot checklists that military aviators have used for decades. But instead of a procedure on how to handle an engine fire, you'll find the procedure for how to make a mojito. From classic recipes to military specials like the Queen of Battle or the Afterburner, our cocktail books have something special for every veteran. So go to aviatorfuel.com and get ready to raise a glass to the brave men and women who serve our country. That's aviatorfuel.com.
The fight against abortion in Illinois has never been more important than it is right now. Thanks to our elected officials, Illinois has become an abortion tourism destination. The number of abortions in our state continues to grow, despite the fact that crisis pregnancy centers outnumber abortion clinics almost 3 to 1. Now, thanks to a new effort by Caring Network, it's possible to reach abortion-minded women to provide peace of mind and security to help them choose life. This new Reach Her First initiative seeks to provide women with the assurance and information they need before they choose an abortion. But Caring Network needs your help to reach women who are considering abortion. For a one-time gift of just $150, you can help reach 5 women and help them choose life. That's all it takes to prevent an abortion. To make that gift, just go to 560theanswer.com/caring. That's 560theanswer.com/caring.
You're listening to The Real Story with your host, Jeannie Ives.
Welcome back. Just a reminder, the phone number is 312-642-5600 if you want to weigh in on the conversation. Coming up in the next hour, we have State Senator Lee Arellano. He is a brand new state senator from Dixon, Illinois. He was the Dixon mayor for 8 years. He helped clean up that Crudwell mess where she stole about, $53 million. Lee's a great guy, and we're going to talk to him about what's going on in Springfield. But I will tell you guys, be aware. There is a live bill right now that would tax you per vehicle mile driven, not with a gas tax, but per vehicle mile driven. This is the last thing we want. But the people in the Springfield are crazy. Don't forget about that. The Democrats running the show down there are absolute insane people. Okay, so there's a lot of problems that are going to come up in May. They got a really tough budget to figure out. We're going to discuss all of that with Lee Arellano, brand new state senator from Dixon, after this break. This is The Real Story with Jeannie Ives. We'll be right back.
We always use M13. They can print anything.
They design and price match. M13 does amazing work.
M13 Graphics has helped make our brand stand out. They're definitely the best for less.
Before M13, amateur. With M13, we look awesome.
M13 Graphics, Chicago's leader in full-color design and printing. Set your business up for success with exceptional print products. Turned around in just 24 to 48 hours. Business cards, postcards, posters, banners, brochures, apparel, you name it. M13 will design and print nearly anything for your business. They have the right people in place and a reputation that keeps customers happy and coming back for more. They're a Chicago company that embodies the idea of business integrity. They live it every day. After all, in this country, you're free to do business with who you choose. Respect that freedom. Choose the best. For speedy turnaround, excellent service, and the best pricing in Chicagoland, choose M13 Graphics for all your design and printing. Online at M13.com. Visit M13.com or call now, toll free, 877-M13-1913. That's 877-M13-1913.
News, opinion, insight. This is AM 560, The Answer. WIND, Chicago. Streaming at 560theanswer.com on the AM 560 mobile app, or tell your smart speaker to play The Answer Chicago.
Wait and see in Ukraine. I'm Kathleen Maloney, Fox News. President Trump returning to the White House tonight after a weekend that took him from the Vatican to his golf club in New Jersey. He spoke about a meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky on the sidelines of Pope Francis's funeral.
He needs more weapons, and we're going to see what happens. I want to see what happens with respect to Russia, because Russia has been surprised and disappointed.
The president says his meeting with Zelensky went well. He says Zelensky seems calmer now and wants to make a deal. Mourners gathering at St. Mary Major Basilica on the second day of Pope Francis's funeral. Fox's Lauren Green with more in Vatican City.
For millions of faithful, attention is now being put on who will replace him as the Vicar of Christ. This afternoon, members of the College of Cardinals, one of whom will be the next pope, visited the tomb of Pope Francis, where he is now interred at the Basilica of St. Mary Major. The cardinals came for a final private goodbye. Thousands of faithful stood in long lines to be the first to visit the simple grotto. Hanging above it, a single illuminated crucifix, the grave marked only with the words Franciscus. Some 200,000 filled St. Peter's Square for the memorial mass led by Cardinal Pietro Parolin, who many papal watchers are predicting could be the next pope.
No date is set for the conclave, but it's expected to start between May 5th and 10th. Agents from the Secret Service and ICE in Miami have arrested a second suspect linked to a pattern of robberies and thefts in Washington, D.C. The suspect believed to be a co-conspirator in those incidents, with the primary defendant who is accused of committing a robbery against Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. The suspect is being held on an immigration detainer as charges are being finalized. America is listening to Fox News.
Now, your official weather forecast.
It'll be partly cloudy overnight with low 52. Breezy tomorrow with times of clouds and sunshine with high up to 81. Cloudy, breezy, and warm tomorrow night. Watch for a strong thunderstorm heading our way late, low 67. And we've got widely separated morning thunderstorms on Tuesday. Then times of clouds and sun in the afternoon. Breezy with a high going up to 71. I'm Ruth O'Brien on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
Hut, hut. Listen up and listen up good. If you're tired of run-of-the-mill gifts, then get on over to aviatorfuel.com. You'll find unique military-style cocktail books and barware to go with it. At aviatorfuel.com, we've got the perfect gift for any soldier, sailor, Marine, or just red-blooded American. You'll especially love our military cocktail checklists, modeled off the real Army, Navy, and Marine pilot checklists that military aviators have used for decades. These award-winning books are authentic replicas, but instead of a procedure on how to handle an engine fire, you'll find the procedure for how to make a mojito, written with military jargon throughout. So pick up a cocktail checklist from aviatorfuel.com. Invite some old friends to share war stories over cocktails. Your perfect libation is inside the cocktail checklist. And don't forget matching military-themed barware. Go to aviatorfuel.com and get ready to raise a glass to the brave men and women who serve our country. That's aviatorfuel.com.
AM 560 listeners, sign up today to receive a free financial education video series, The 5 Retirement Pitfalls and How to Avoid Them, courtesy of Steve Shyman, host of Protecting Your Assets radio show, Saturdays at 8 a.m. Sign up is easy, and the 5-part video series is completely free and will arrive in your email inbox. Sign up today. It's free. Please text your name and email address to 833-945-7283. Again, please text your name and email address to 833-945-7283.
The following advertisement includes a celebrity impersonation.
You know, nothing beats the comfort of a perfectly heated home.
And when it comes to heating your home, Air Right Heating and Cooling does it the best.
And they love our country. Beautiful people.
Air Right Heating and Cooling is fast. When your furnace breaks down, they'll fix it right away.
Just like that. Big time results. No waiting around. You get the job done right. And let's face it, who doesn't love being warm, right? It's beautiful. When it's freezing, I crank up that amazing furnace. Burn, baby, burn. Trust me, you'll say, wow, I've never felt this warm in my life.
If you like keeping your hard-earned money, then contact Air Right Heating and Cooling and tell them AM 560 sent you to receive $56 off any service.
Unbelievable.
Visit Air Right Heating and Cooling today at AIR-RITE.com. Again, that's AIR-RITE.com. Air Right Heating and Cooling, doing it right since 1959.
Portions of the following show may be pre-recorded.
AM 560, The Answer. If we want to preserve our constitutional republic, we need an informed and educated citizenry. And that's what this show is all about. Find out what's really happening. It's time to stop the lies and learn the truth. This is The Real Story with your host, Jeannie Ives.
Welcome back to The Real Story with Jeannie Ives. It's Sunday night, and we are going to be talking with Lee Arellano. He's a U.S. Army veteran, former mayor of Dixon, was sworn in recently as an Illinois state senator for the 37th district. His district spans all over parts of Bureau, DeKalb, Henry, LaSalle, Lee, Marshall, Ogle, Peoria, Rock Island, Stark, Whiteside, and Woodford counties. He represents a vast amount of territory in the state of Illinois. I've known Lee since 2012 when we both ran for state rep. Since then, he has tackled, raising a family. I think he's got his 5th child now, but he just recently got elected to the state Senate, and that's why we're having him on, because there is a lot going on in Springfield. And Lee, it is your first term down there. What has surprised you? First of all, thanks for coming on my show. But
yeah, great to be here.
I mean, what surprised you down there that you weren't maybe expecting?
There are some things. As a local mayor for 8 years, certainly you're paying attention to the state. So some of the things I expected, there's a lot more political theater, which I expected, but it's still fascinating to see it up close. I think one thing that surprised me is how dramatically different committee work is than the floor. I think, when you're on the outside, you kind of have a rough idea of how it's working. When you're on the inside, you learn that even in the super minority, a freshman Republican who does his research and asks sharp questions can impact bills, can impact legislation. But as you well know, since you served down there, in a supermajority, once it hits the floor, it is over. You can give your speech, you can engage in the political theater, which is sometimes necessary, but any chance that substance has passed, they're never going to let one of their votes go down if they can help it. They often won't even call it to the floor, as we saw with the Homeschool Act. If they don't think they have the right votes, they don't want to look bad. So I've really, as a freshman, tried to dig into the committee work, which was the last few months. And it was surprising how effective that could be. But on the flip side, disappointing on some of those bills that are just bad or mediocre and could have been good, and you just don't have a voice. That still happens.
Well, what I find shocking every time I look in at committee, and by the way, I watched the Higher Education House Committee just a couple days ago, and they had the University of Illinois systems in, they had Northern Illinois systems in, they had a representative from a private college in. It was a 4.5-hour committee hearing. we're talking about billions of dollars that they're going to spend coming up here in the budget time frame.
Right.
And you just don't get to have the quality of questions. The other problem, though, that I find very problematic down there is they don't listen to experts.
Yeah.
And you, of all people, are an expert. I mean, you sat down there as the Dixon mayor cleaning up the Crudwell ethics problem, her stealing $56 million or $53 million, whatever it was, a ginormous amount of money from taxpayers. You were a small town mayor, but a significant town, by the way, the home of Ronald Reagan, Dixon, Illinois.
Yeah.
And you sit on the local government committee. You sit on the pension committee, which impacts local government as well. Did you feel like your expertise was listened to at all?
You know, I think they turn it on and off depending on the pressures of the particular bill. I think there are a few bills that had to do with modernizing local governments, digital records, things that, you know, their donors didn't care about and their power base didn't care about, where they listened. You know, there's other things where they don't listen at all. And, you know, take the recent discussion in the Senate over our law enforcement officers being able to use the smell of cannabis or marijuana as part of their due process or as part of their investigation during a stop. And you had prosecutors with experience in exactly dealing with impaired drivers and the kind of damage they can cause in a family and in lives, speaking to the problems in the bill, and it made no difference. Folks that had not been involved in the justice system, have not been involved in dealing with those cases, completely ignored their testimony, that part is very frustrating. And so, you know, I think the dichotomy is when it comes to a bill where they decide they're on a mission, whether it's the Safety Act or there's cannabis bill, or until the homeschoolers really put their foot down, the Homeschool Act would have fallen in that category if the people hadn't risen up. You know, they just don't listen. So yes, when we're poking around the edges, I think they've allowed me to be a little bit of a voice. When they're dealing with the big issues, they don't care about Republican input. They don't care about rural input. It's gotten to the point where I'm not sure they even care about suburban input. And as you mentioned, they don't care about expert opinion if it doesn't fit their narrative. So it just depends on the topic. And the more important the topic, I think the less they listen to expertise.
Well, in that vein as well, when you look at the committee votes that are going out of there, it appears to me, at least the votes that I have followed, that it really doesn't matter if it is a downstate Democrat senator or a Chicago Democrat senator. They vote lockstep. They vote the same.
That part is frustrating to me. So, you know, some of these rural Democrats who are facing some of the same issues that my district is facing, they're voting against their own region, whether they vote for the gerrymandered map, which empowers Chicago over their rural or suburban regions, whether they're voting on transportation spreads, whether, you know, we got big bailouts getting asked from Chicago, whether it's for transportation, for education. And we haven't even begun the discussion of, well, what about rural impacts in these bills? Do we have a voice? Are we getting any of these monies? Is there monies to hand out, which really should be one of the questions, of course. And I think they don't want to lose what little power they have. And so instead of speaking up for their communities, there's times where they just vote in lockstep, as you mentioned. And that is the way to keep, in gerrymandered maps anyway, that is the way to keep donations coming and power coming. If we had fair maps, the voters would punish them for voting that way. But, you know, with these unethical maps, they can get away with that. And so they're catering more to a hard left primary or to liberal donors than they are to really what should be their region, because they pick and choose what their region is.
Yes, I mean, you do have certain Senate districts that go all the way from essentially the south suburbs of Cook County all the way down to Kankakee into very, very rural districts. Yeah. And they've actually drawn these to their advantage. And until voters wake up, we're not going to get change there. How about you are also on the pension committee, and of course, local pensions are an issue. There were a number of bills, at least in the House, that would move Tier 2 pensions essentially back to Tier 1, which would enormously increase the unfunded liability in this state. On the Senate side, in the pension committee, it seems to me like some of that has just fallen to the wayside as something they don't want to tackle yet this year. What is happening in the Senate on those pensions?
I think that's an accurate assessment. The the costs involved were so massive that even the liberal side of the Democratic Party, and you can argue whether the moderate side exists under these maps, but even the liberal side looked at those costs and just said, it's not financially doable. And when you have that happen, you know how unreasonable the ask was in the first place, right? And so most of the tier 2 fixes, even to some degree, the safe harbor discussion has kind of fallen by the wayside. I think some of the safe harbor fixes, unfortunately, only will give money to the most well-paid public employees. But that was presented in the governor's budget address. So I do still expect to see some of those. I think he budgeted around $70 million. I expect to see in whatever they slice and dice in those leadership smoke-filled rooms, I expect to see some fixes there. But again, when what they're going to do is they're going to present your teacher making $40,000 or $50,000 a year and paying for their own school supplies as the poster child. Safe harbor, that's not who's getting that money. No, it is somebody at a state university making hundreds of thousands of dollars that has run into a cap, right? And so even if you were going to look at any fixes to tier 2 at all, which we can't afford right now, that's just the blunt mathematical truth. We haven't made an actuarial accurate pension payment in who knows how long. Certainly missed, I think, by about $5 billion last year. We're going to miss by about $5.1 billion. What an actuary will recommend this coming year. The tier 2 money isn't there. But if there was something you were going to poke at the edges of, whether it's the age or trying to help out the lowest earners and make sure it changes for them, that's not what Safe Harbor does. That's not the discussion that's on the lead right now. So in as much as I'm sympathetic to some of the age things, and if we didn't have $8 billion in pension debt payments this year, maybe I'd be open to those conversations, right? The math isn't there. And the only part that might have a chance of getting through this year isn't even the lowest of state employee earners or, the teacher making $50,000 and paying for her own school supplies. That's not who's going to get helped.
Yeah, no, they always use the wrong poster child for what the problem actually is. You mentioned $8 billion in a pension payment. I mean, last year's pension payment was about $11 billion, and they shorted it by $5.
Yeah, so we're going to have over an $11 billion total payment. That $8 billion, that is just the debt payment.
Oh.
If we didn't have all of that debt built up, you're right. Your numbers are about perfect. We would have about a $3 billion pension payment instead of over $11 billion. That $8 billion, that is just the pension holidays. That's the Blagojevich wasted fund years. That is just debt payments. And so when people ask about more money for education or mental health or especially property tax relief, all of that money was spent, by Blagojevich in the early 2000s, by Rauner on non-citizens. All of that money has been spent over the years, and we have these massive debt payments. And one of the stories I like to tell when I'm out giving speeches about my work on the pensions committee is Wisconsin, which is no blazing red state. It's a pretty purple state right now. They had a very good governor in Scott Walker who was addressing some issues for a while. So certainly we'd love to have that happen to us. But they're a pretty purple state. If we were funded at their levels, that $8 billion in debt would be closer to about $1.5 billion. In other words, we'd have almost $7 billion more just in this fiscal year if we were run as well as a purple state to our north. And so it's impossible to understand Illinois without understanding the depth of that financial mismanagement that went into pensions and lucrative benefits and, stacking pay at the end of careers and, quite frankly, just not making payments because they wanted to spend a whole bunch of money and refused to find it the right way or make cuts to get it.
Okay, Lee, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back to talk about more. I want to talk about some of the cultural issues that are railing the state and get your opinion on that. We'll be right back. This is The Real Story with Jeannie Ives.
Charlie Kirk says the time has come.
Harvard University has a $50 billion endowment. They have a tax-exempt status. They get money for research grants. Why is it, as a country which is $35 trillion in debt, we continue to finance universities that hate us? Has Harvard just become a Democrat think tank? And if they are, why are they taxpayer-funded entity?
The Charlie Kirk Show, weekdays at 11, right before Hugh Hewitt at 2 on AM 560. The Answer.
Your business is under attack 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's a fact. Small businesses are the low-hanging fruit. You may think you're protected, but you're vulnerable in many ways, and cyber attackers actively prey on small businesses. But Turnkey can protect you. Turnkey is the key to cyber protection. Turnkey has a quick and efficient 12-point evaluation to determine if your business, your profits, are at risk. And right now, for a limited time, Turnkey is offering the first month of service to all new customers free. Peace of mind, free. It includes all Microsoft licensing, antivirus, anti-malware, and completed data backup both on-site and off-site, plus help desk support. Don't leave you, your employees, and your customers vulnerable. Talk to Turnkey. Visit turnkey.pro. 3 decades of experience. That's turnkey.pro. Turnkey, the champion of small business. Spring. A time to get outside, be active, play with the grandkids, enjoy life. But if high blood pressure is holding you back, the sooner you get control of it, the sooner you'll stop being a walking time bomb. High blood pressure is a serious issue. Your blood vessels are constricted, your mortality risk is high. So what can you do besides take medications with side effects? Well, there's a delicious juice that can help bring your numbers back down. It's called 120 Life, and it has natural ingredients that have shown to lower blood pressure. Yes, a superfood juice is showing amazing results for high blood pressure without the side effects of big pharma medication. Try 120 Life risk-free now with a 2-week trial pack. Go to 120life.com and use coupon code 560 to save 15% and get free shipping. They're so sure it can lower your blood pressure in 2 weeks, they'll give your money back if you're not satisfied. Order now. That's 120life.com. Use coupon code 560 at checkout for 15% off.
Can you afford not to have effective video surveillance? Is your outdoor inventory at risk? Theft and vandalism can hit your bottom line hard. Stop these events before they happen. Monitor your business 24/7 with alarm detection systems. We prevent crime with live operators watching video alerts, ensuring your assets and employees are secure. It's not worth the liability when you can effectively protect what matters most. Call ADS at 1-630-844-6322 or visit adsalarm.com for a free demo. Alarm license number 127000143. Spending too much on security guards to patrol your property? With rising crime rates, guards may not be enough. And the cost, it's adding up fast. At Alarm Detection Systems, we offer a more innovative solution. Live video monitoring. Cameras provide extra coverage in even the hardest to reach areas. Unlike guards, they never get intimidated. Our operators watch video alerts in real time, cut costs, increase coverage, and stay secure. Call ADS at 1-630-844-6322 or visit adsalarm.com for a free demo. Alarm license number 127000143.
You're listening to The Real Story with your host, Jeannie Ives.
Well, welcome back. I still have former Dixon Mayor Lee Arellano with me, now state senator, and he's just telling us exactly what we can expect coming up in May. It's going to be budget discussions. Before we get to that, because I do want to hear from you on the budget, obviously you've probably been cut out of it. They don't let Republicans in on those meetings. But I mean, listen, Lee, we have a ton of financial issues in the state, but we have some huge cultural issues at this point.
Yes.
I mean, you've got J.B. Pritzker out there saying that he's going to punish El Salvador like he can for simply not releasing Garcia, who is a known MS-13 gang member. Like, why is he harping on this? You've got the Deerfield incident where they were forcing a middle school girl to change in front of a boy in her locker room. That story went not just national, but international, with even J.K. Rowling weighing in on it. You've now got the IHSA, who is essentially saying we are going to ignore Trump's executive orders on women, only women playing in women's sports. And they're thumbing their nose at him and saying, no, state law requires us to allow trans, quote, trans, air quotes, trans, biological men to play in women's sports. These cultural issues are also, let's face it, a huge problem for Illinoisans.
They are. And on many of them, despite the hundreds of millions Pritzker's money spends on messaging and all this, the public's really on our side on these issues. I have 3 daughters. They deserve their own space for competition and opportunities and leadership and teamwork. And a lot of work has been done over the years to make sure young girls like my 3 daughters have opportunities. And you're seeing records getting taken and spots being taken and opportunities be taken by biological males. And a majority of the public does not agree with that, right? And in some polls I've seen, a majority of Democrats sometimes disagree with that. So it's an issue that we do need to lead on. We are on the right side of the public. We are on the right side of ethics, and we're on the right side of defending the opportunities for these young girls and these women. So it's something that, the whole Senate caucus penned a letter. I believe all the House Republicans did. We're trying to get this sorted out. I saw our Congresswoman also, message the Attorney General and sent in a letter because unfortunately in Illinois, we all know our governor has his finger in the air as to what will play in a national Democratic presidential primary.
Well, that was the key there, Lee. A national Democratic primary. He'll go nowhere in the general election with his radical views, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He is barking up a tree to get the Democrat nomination. He is not playing to the middle road like even Newsom is attempting to do.
Right.
So what's with that? That makes no sense. He's got money to burn, obviously. Does he just want to wear the sash as the Democrat nominee for president in 2028?
I think when you've been a billionaire whole life, and especially when you were born with the silver spoon in your mouth, you begin to think you're a little invincible, right? And so I think he actually thinks he has a shot. I think he's in for a rude awakening at the national level, right? And we saw that during the VP sweepstakes for Kamala, right? As they looked at him as like, this is not a good fit for our party. And while I didn't think their ultimate VP pick was a great pick either, they knew JB wasn't going to fit that niche for them of what they're looking for and what they're wanting. And in his world and with his advisors, I'm sure he believes that makes sense. Unfortunately, for those of us in Illinois, our leader isn't taking a look at the state, isn't taking a look at the diversity of ideology and thought in the state, and trying to craft legislation and a plan around that. He is building it around what sells nationally. This is why we have some of the most liberal gun laws in the nation. It's why we have some of the most liberal pro-abortion laws, including using abortion as economic development and advertising it, right? This is why some of those laws are getting struck down in the courts. My wife worked at a pro-life women's clinic, helped advocate for women. And there was a period of time where her medical license was under threat because Illinois passed a law that has now been struck down as unconstitutional, saying they had to refer to abortion and give advice on abortion and all these things that my wife just ethically would not do. Why were those laws there? Did they make sense in Illinois? No, but they made sense because our governor wants to be president and he's trying to position himself as the most liberal person in America, the anti-Trump. He thinks that's his lane to win. And he's taken Illinois on a ride that direction. It's part of why we spent billions in non-citizen spending when we had so many other needs.
Yes.
I have to make a point right here because Dixon, we have the Mabley Developmental Institution here in Dixon. It's under investigation at the federal level because the feds do not believe, and this has been ongoing for years, that the state is taking care of people with disabilities properly. On top of that, JB is trying to cut the amount of service hours for disabled persons in community homes. Meanwhile, he was spending hundreds of millions into the billions on working age adults that aren't even citizens of our nation. So you're cutting services to the most vulnerable Illinoisans and sending money to people of working age many times who are not citizens. Why? Why would any governor of Illinois ever do that? And the answer very much lies in not all of this is geared towards an Illinois audience. It's geared towards a national primary, and we're suffering because of it.
Well, that brings me to the budget, and we only have a few minutes left with you. But you are on the Human and Health Services committees, which are really important when it comes to the budget. In fact, they have at least the second highest allotment in the general revenues after education.
Yes.
And they're about equal. So tell me, is there going to be some reining in of the money going to illegals on Medicaid in Illinois?
He's proposed some of that in his budget. I think he had to, now that the COVID borrowed money ran out, right?
Yep.
And so we in the Republican caucus have very much tried to push that narrative and make it hard for him to undo those initiatives. The initiative being cutting the spending for the working age adults. We obviously needs to go farther than that. If I have to pick between disabled Illinoisans in our communities and non-citizens of any age, I'm going to pick Illinoisans. That's who we have a duty to. So I think we're going to see some of it because he has no financial choice. I think he's going to keep hundreds of millions of it still that should be going into our current 2025 problems of Illinois.
Lee, we only have about a minute left here. Just very quickly, We're working on a Doge project ourselves with Illinois.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you look at the budget, you really don't get all the information you needed. Wouldn't it be great to just have every line item out in a spreadsheet so you could easily discern what you're spending money on?
Yeah.
Right now, it's basically words clouded by numbers.
Absolutely. And it is very hard. One thing that's very different at the state level is you don't get those numbers. At the local level, as a mayor, we had those to work with and made reforms easier to work with. At the state level, take non-citizen spending. They had to do an Auditor General's report to find out how ridiculous the amounts of money were that they spent. Why didn't they know that in real time? Why couldn't we provide oversight? Because, as you mentioned, they won't track those numbers for us. It's a problem.
Yep. Okay, he's Lee Arellano, brand new state senator, Republican from Dixon, and former mayor of Dixon, Illinois. Thank you so much for joining me on The Real Story, Lee.
Glad to be here.
Hey Chicago, it's me, Larry Elder, the sage from South Central, the great Eldersky, Don Lorenzo, and I want you to join me along with Dan Proft and Sean Thompson for AM 560's upcoming cigar nights on May 21st and 22nd. I'm looking forward to meeting all of you and sitting down to talk about everything that's been happening during the first 100 days of the Trump administration. Get your tickets today at 560theanswer.com/cigar. That's 560theanswer.com/cigar. And I'll see you on May 21st and 22nd.
On doing business, not on thinking, failures or victories.
Lavrov speaking to CBS News. President Trump and Ukrainian leader Zelensky had what the president calls a good talk about ending the war at the Vatican this weekend. Police in Vancouver, Canada, have a suspect they say rammed his SUV into a crowded festival last night. Chief Steve Rye.
Everything's on the table. We haven't... I'd be speculating if I stated a factor in it. So our investigators all the teams are called out and they're working through it.
At least 11 people are dead. That number expected to rise. America's listening to Fox News.
It's Reveille. Sometimes it's a small story that tells people more about what's going on than data sets, charts, and graphs. This story comes to light courtesy of the Edgar County Watchdogs. Since 2010, when they started, the work of the Edgar County Watchdogs has led to 678 public officials being forced out of office, either by resignation, electoral defeat, a decision not to run due to their exposure, or legal action taken against them. Here's one of those stories, which, to their credit, WAND News also wrote about. The Office of Executive Inspector General reported that Deborah Riley, who was an attorney for the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services, recently left after a report from the OEIG found that she was allegedly doing work for a bank on state time. Riley began working for DCFS Office of Legal Services in Urbana in November of 2022. And according to the OEIG report, almost from the beginning of employment, she was investigated for lying on her timesheets. For example, for the 2-week period, December 16 through 31, 2022, she reported working at a bank for 83.5 hours and for DCFS, 75 hours. The OEIG investigation took months to finish, and certainly her employer knew she was under investigation. Regardless, she was moved into an administrative law position. Eventually, she left that, but faced no other repercussions for her malfeasance. Prior to this latest problem with Riley, the Watchdogs wrote a story about her illegal appointment as legal counsel for the city of Windsor. We applaud WAND for putting out the story and the Watchdogs for amplifying it and following the entire story. These stories erode public trust in government and are prolific. Most disturbing is the lack of accountability when the malfeasance is investigated and found to be true. You can find more stories like this at EdgarCountyWatchdogs.com. I also feature them on my radio show every Sunday night. I'm Jeannie Ives. Check out The Real Story with me Sunday from 7 to 9 p.m. and sign up for my newsletter at breakthrough-ideas.com.
Our local hospitals are the heartbeat of our communities, delivering critical care every hour of every day for everyone, training the next generation of caregivers. Beyond the walls, their benefit to the community is everywhere, driving the local economy and supporting local organizations, initiatives, and neighbors. Illinois Hospitals, healing communities. Learn more at team-iha.org. Sponsored by the Illinois Health and Hospital Association. Aired in cooperation with the Illinois Broadcasters Association and this station.
You can hear this today at PreggerTopia.com.
Hello, Dennis. I tell you what, talk about crossing something off my bucket list. I really want to know if there was a campaign to draft you, would you just kind of would it be okay to just see what happens, see if there's any kind of momentum that comes up behind that?
Yeah, if somebody wants to make that effort, I won't stop them.
Hear the entire episode. It's for Preggertopia members only. Go to PreggerTopia.com.
Mike Lindell and his employees want to personally thank you for your continued support of MyPillow. They have a big allotment of their bed sheets that were earmarked for the box stores this spring. Well, they did it again. The box stores didn't come through, so they're going to pass the savings on to you. Now there is no middleman, so you're going to get wholesale prices on their famous Giza Dreams and Percale bed sheets. Giza Dream Queen Size normally $139.98. Your wholesale price $69.99. King Size only $79.99. Percale Queen Size normally $89.98. Your wholesale price $29.98. King size only $34.98. So go to mypillow.com and use promo code LIBERTY or call 800-489-0201. Free shipping options available. This allotment won't last long. When they're gone, they're gone. So remember, go to mypillow.com and use promo code LIBERTY or call 800-489-0201 to get these amazing wholesale offers.
We now return to The Real Story. Here's your host, Jeannie Ives.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. We've got John from McHenry County on the line. John, welcome to the program. You're here live.
Thank you, Jeannie. A question. You're talking to the senator for the last half hour,
Yes.
and a question as legislation was filed in early April with an extension for pharmacy benefits managers reform. And there was a big article on this in last Sunday's Tribune. I don't know if you saw it, but certainly I'm curious where you feel about that. Is it a reform that's long overdue? I mean, you ran for Congress a few years back, and prescription drug prices is always a challenge for everybody, including Illinoisans, and I'm curious where you stand on the legislation. It's Senate Bill 709 under Senate Amendment 1, a classic gut and replace.
Yep.
Curious to know your thoughts on that.
Well, you know what? I have not evaluated that legislation, but I will tell you the PBM issue has been railing for, oh my gosh, probably a decade. It actually goes back to when we went to managed care. Instead of fee-for-service with Medicaid, which, I mean, there were reasons to do that. I get it. I understand. Maybe we needed a hybrid program. But there's been a conflict between those who manage the care and then the pharmacy benefit stuff. So everybody's playing off each other. This is a problem. It is absolutely a problem. And I don't know if that bill's a solution. I will look at it. I was in Alaska for the last 2 weeks. I missed that Tribune article, but I will definitely bring it up. I know I have some state reps down there wondering about the same thing. I'm going to talk to fortunately, we do have a doctor in the House, a Republican doctor in the House. He's actually a doctor. Dr. William Howder is a doctor, and hopefully he is on the Human Services Committee and the Health Services Committees in the House. So hopefully he'll be able to weigh in this articulately. But I will have to look at that, John. I'm sorry I'm not up to speed on that one, but I will tell you it's been a problem. I believe it began with Obamacare, but then became more difficult in Illinois under managed care.
Okay. Thank you for looking into it, and hope we'll hear about it maybe next week then.
You bet. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Okay, let's get right to the Watchdogs because we have a lot to talk about. We're going to start with Kirk Allen. Kirk, thanks a lot for joining me. I know John's on too. There's a couple different topics we wanted to talk about. First of all, I know if you guys just heard my Reveille play during the break, it was about a story that Kirk and John have done about, again, one of these government employees who didn't get prosecuted. She's cheating. She's literally lying on her timesheets. They do an OEIG investigation. Okay, let's add allegedly. But the OEIG investigation said that during the Christmas break, from December 16th to December 31st, she worked 75 hours as a DCFS officer and 83 hours in a bank job during Christmas over those 2 weeks. I don't buy it. And regardless, she just basically got to move on. And it was so astonishing to me. It's an example of part of the efforts that we're doing with our Doge Illinois, which is fraud, waste, and abuse of taxpayer money. And so I said, Kirk, can you come up with just give me 10 examples of government employees, could be local, state, that live in Illinois that have you've seen the same non-prosecution stance. And so he did it. And guys, I put it up. It's at our website, breakthrough-ideas.com. You can go there right now. It's the top article. It's our lead article right now on that website. And you can read all these stories. So I know, Kirk, maybe you want to do a quick comment on that, but then you had another story that we were going to cover, a couple different ones. So I'll let you take it from here.
Well, thanks for having me, Jeannie. You know what was ironic with that when you asked, to put that stuff together? There's so much to grab. In less than an hour, we were able to compile, at least 10 good ones. And there's probably 2 to 3 times that if we devoted a little more time to it and just go back with a little history. The lack of prosecutions in Illinois is just astounding compared to what we see in other places.
Yeah, I think that's a frustration at the federal level now. You see a lot of things coming out about malfeasance and, rip-offs and people stealing. And the people are just waiting for somebody to be put in handcuffs. And we're going to get to it next, but we're going to talk with John after we talk with Kirk about those 2 judges that are in handcuffs. But let's turn now to this story instead that you raised. And I'm trying to think, is it the mayor? Is that the mayor's story of Nason?
Yep, Nason, Illinois. The mayor was arrested on 3 felony charges, possession of a stolen vehicle and 2 counts of obstruction. And it turns, and she's the tyrant down there. Yeah, she's the little tyrant that was going to give us a fine or give John a fine for speaking out of turn at a public meeting. John stood up and wrote down his name and address and made sure she had the right zip code. We never got the fine, but some of the locals down there have been getting fines. She's filed lawsuits against the gal that ran against her for mayor. She lost her reelection bid, so that's a good thing. And now she's going to have to face justice for stealing a vehicle from what we understand, or allegedly stealing it, was from her father after her dad passed. But the truck wasn't to be to her. It was apparently titled in her sister's name.
Oh,
so not sure how they got all that turned around. But what's ironic with this, it has nothing to do with local government per se until I did my FOIA request for records.
Right. This is the real story. This is the other part of the story, the real story here. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
Right. Just the sheriff's office, they gave me the mugshot like I asked for. And they said the rest of the stuff you're going to have to wait until our state's attorney says it's okay. Well, number one, that's not how FOIA works. You either give us the records or claim the exemptions and deny it. Well past the 5 days, we get all the rest of the records. And to my amazement, we got police reports, witness names, driver's license numbers. We've got so much private information that wasn't redacted, I couldn't believe it. So I compiled all of the records, and we redacted everything that needed to be redacted. We sent it back to the sheriff's office and let them know, hey, in the future, you might want to learn how to do this. This is what you shouldn't have given out. Here's what you gave me, and here's the redacted version.
Oh, my gosh.
And ironically, we had a person down there, a Southern Illinois watchdog, that got the same records. They asked for the same records, and they published them. And he contacted me, and he's like, man, I didn't redact anything. Should I have? I said, well, you don't have to redact them since they didn't give them to you redacted. But as a professional courtesy, and we try to, to keep people's stuff private. But this case, it also included names of witnesses. So the gentleman took the stuff back offline and took care of redacting it before he reposted it. Where do these people learn?
In your article, they gave you the judge's signatures, the state's attorney's signature.
Yeah, got them all.
Yeah, no, I mean,
and
so that's the other part of the story. Like, these people couldn't even comply. They don't even know how to comply with the FOIA request correctly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing that, we've even had state's attorneys give us that kind of stuff, but it's so sad when they do that. And some folks will say, well, hey, they gave you more than you asked for. You should be happy. Mm-hmm. Well, you're missing the point, because a defense attorney, could try to throw all kinds of things up in the air when you start leaking out that much information before you have a trial.
Yeah. Okay. Let's now turn to something that you have something positive to say. There's actually a good bill in the General Assembly, but it needs to be tweaked. Why don't you explain that?
Yep. The Citizen Participation Act. I don't recall. There was I think it was Senator Steve
Stadelman.
Yeah. Stadelman.
Mm-hmm.
Brought this up in the Senate. It's gone through 3 readings in the Senate and passed. It's moved over to the House.
Mm-hmm.
It corrects what the Supreme Court did years ago when it comes to using the Citizen Participation Act as a mechanism to defend a lawsuit, what they call a SLAPP lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
And the courts inserted the word solely in their ruling. This case had to be solely based on, this one point. Well, the way everybody gets around it is they file a defamation case and then they add a conspiracy charge or something else in it, so it's not solely defamation. And the court literally fabricated that word. It was nowhere in the statute. Well, finally, after years, it's being addressed, and it addresses that very point of the word solely, and it no longer applies. And hopefully this thing will get through the House. Now, we've made some suggestions.
This is, by the way, a very important law because it helps protect people who are essentially, calling out legislators for things that they have done. And it allows them to actually say things that need to be said without being subject to defamation in many cases.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. And the very end of this, it says that it's to apply only to actions commenced on or after January 1 of 2026. Well, it's our contention it should commence immediately and be applicable to anything that's currently in the court system.
Absolutely, that I agree with that. And by the reason this is important is because oftentimes what will happen is you'll have a public official claim defamation, and just to push somebody through a very, very lengthy and expensive lawsuit to shut them up. This is to shut up people. And so the Citizens Participation Act was created. And if they can get around it by misreading what the law actually says it allows for, then that's a problem. So this corrects that issue.
Yeah, it's long overdue. How the Supreme Court got away with that years ago. And you remember during COD in 2012,
yes.
I think it was Deanne Mazzocchi when she was a state rep. She actually tried to address this. And at that time, if I recall her comments correctly, the trial lawyers shut it down. They wanted no part of it. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of shocked to see this come back. Now, I think Deanne was a Republican. This guy was a Democrat. So with the Democrat control, maybe it'll go through. But it is a good bill. It covers what needs to be covered and corrects the wrong.
Right. No, I mean, Scott Drury went after his opponent in, I think it was the 2014, maybe it was the 2016 race, with said it was defamation what he said, and the SLAPP Act really got caught up in that thing too. So anyway.
Good bill.
Mm-hmm. All right, good. Okay, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back to talk about with John and Kirk, both of them, about the New Mexico and the Wisconsin judges who got arrested. This is The Real Story. Thanks for joining me.
If you're hiding your smile because of missing teeth, are experiencing pain due to incoming wisdom teeth or a misaligned jaw, Midland Oral Surgery and Implant Centers can change your life. Experts in the fields of oral and maxillofacial surgery, anesthesia, and dental implantology, the doctors at Midland Oral Surgery are committed to providing compassionate care in a calm and relaxing environment. Dental implants, bone grafting, removing wisdom teeth, surgical management of the hard and soft tissues of the facial region, including sedation dentistry, so you can improve your smile in a painless, pleasant, and stress-free manner. With state-of-the-art CT imaging equipment, Midland Oral Surgery and Implant Centers have unparalleled diagnostic and treatment capabilities, proudly serving Southwest Chicago and its suburbs for over 50 years. Make an appointment to discuss a pain-free solution for your smile. Locations in Frankfort, Tinley Park, Oak Lawn, and Western Springs. Learn more about the doctors and procedures at midlandoms.com. That's midlandoms.com.
Do you agree that the educational system is broken? The cycle of content conveyance and consumption is failing our children. They are listless, bored, and uninspired. I am Peter Serby, the founder and director of the Riverside Club for Adventure and Imagination, and author of the new book, Casting Fire, a guide to the adventure and imagination of boyhood. The true purpose of education should be to spark a child's curiosity and wonder, to light a fire of creativity, to illuminate a path to find gift and calling. A decade ago, I founded Riverside to rekindle a love of learning in our youth. Our innovative vision immerses boys and girls ages 8 to 14 in epic stories, ignites in them a passion for adventuring in the great outdoors, teaches them the art of craftsmanship, and facilitates strong friendships rooted in faith. Join us on our educational journey. Visit ourside.org to learn more about our imaginative programs and summer camps. And check out my new book, Casting Fire, on Amazon. That's ourside.org.
I think one of the things that patients don't realize is that when they get a joint replacement, that's not a lifetime treatment option. And they're probably, if they are a younger patient, signing up for multiple surgeries down the road.
As a physician and medical director for QC Kinetics, Dr. Caravelli's seen a pattern of trending joint pain. Prolonged medication, steroids, then surgery, possibly another surgery.
So a lot of our patients are trying to avoid or put off surgery, and this is the treatment that can help them do that.
QC Kinetics extracts your body's healing substances, concentrates them back into your aching joints to help heal and restore those areas, providing lasting relief.
Oh, I love being able to tell my patients, before we do this surgery, let's try another option. Let's see if this is right for you, because now they might not have to have surgery at all.
Call today for your free consultation.
Call QC Kinetics, 312-809-5955. That's 312-809-5955. 312-809-5955.
We always use M13. They can print anything.
They design and price match. M13 does amazing work.
M13 Graphics has helped make our brand stand out. They're definitely the best for less.
Before M13, amateur. With M13, we look awesome.
M13 Graphics, Chicago's leader in full-color design and printing. Set your business up for success with exceptional print products. Turned around in just 24 to 48 hours. Business cards, postcards, posters, banners, brochures, apparel, you name it. M13 will design and print nearly anything for your business. They have the right people in place and a reputation that keeps customers happy and coming back for more. They're a Chicago company that embodies the idea of business integrity. They live it every day. After all, in this country, you're free to do business with who you choose. Respect that freedom. Choose the best. For speedy turnaround, excellent service, and the best pricing in Chicagoland, choose M13 Graphics for all your design and printing. Online at M13.com. Visit M13.com or call now, toll free, 877-M13-1913. That's 877-M13-1913.
Now, more of The Real Story with your host, Jeannie Ives.
Yeah, welcome back. Hey, listen, we still have the Watchdogs with us. We have Kirk Allen and John Kraft. And John, just turning to you. Listen, I do want to do the Dalton stories. There's plenty to talk about down in Dalton. They've got some more people that are getting apparently indicted or arrested for various things. Surprise, surprise. So we'll get back to that next week. But honestly, I wanted both of you guys, because this is, I think it's monumental. You've got these two judges, these left-wing nut jobs, one in New Mexico, one in Wisconsin, that essentially were harboring or allowing or participating in the evasion of ICE detention on some criminal illegals. I mean, you guys, when you read these criminal complaints, and John, thank you so much for sending them to me. I mean, it just lays out the case right in front of you. You can't even believe that it happened. John, in the actual document, the actual criminal complaint against this Jose Luis Cano, the judge in New Mexico, he admitted he destroyed the cell phone that belonged to Ortega by smashing it with a hammer and discarded the remaining pieces in the city trash dumpster approximately 5 minutes ago. He admitted he destroyed the cell phone and further admitted that he believed the cell phone contained photos or videos that would reflect negatively on Ortega. Ortega is the Trinidaraga gang member that ICE was apprehended. They said the cell phone believed it contained photographs of Ortega holding firearms. I mean, have you ever seen such lawlessness?
No, and I like to look at these not depending on what the crime was that they were going to be arrested for.
Okay.
But that they were going to be arrested, and they were being hidden or they were being housed by this judge who now resigned from office as soon as the charges came down. But they arrested the illegal alien, who said the illegal alien in possession of firearms and ammunition. And they got 4 other firearms. I mean, the complaint and some of the news stories say that they all went to the same range together with the firearms, and he watched them shoot the firearms. It's ridiculous. And then you're right. He did he admitted to destroying the cell phone and putting it in the city dumpster, the municipal dumpster down the road.
So part of the reason I wanted to talk about these is because I think that obviously the left is saying, oh, you can't arrest these sitting judges. This is just extra constitutional. He's taking over. What a tyrant. I mean, you've read a lot of these criminal complaints. This one, it reads, it says, look, in the case of Dugan, I'm a special agent of the FBI and have been employed, I'm currently assigned to this office. Here's what I did. I mean, it lays out fact by fact by fact what they know and what they've personally witnessed. It's not like this is hearsay.
Right. And
but
Dugan,
the media will never.
Go ahead, Kirk.
Yeah, the media will never share that. They'll never give you those details.
That's why it's so important that we talk about it.
Yeah, and Dugan was arrested for obstructing or impeding a proceeding before the United States and concealing an individual to prevent his discovery and arrest. If you and I were to harbor a wanted individual, we would be subject to arrest. And you think they would call us and say, hey, you need to turn yourself in? Or would they go to the first place they knew where we were going to be at, our place of work, and arrest us?
Well, and, also on the criminal complaint, and I didn't print off the one for Dugan. It was but I mean, this entire complaint was signed by a U.S. magistrate judge. So there was due process. There was a warrant for their arrest. There was definitely a warrant for the arrest of this Hannah Dugan. And I don't understand why this is so difficult to understand. Or do you think that the public does understand it and the Democrats are just hoping they can change the narrative?
I don't think the public understands exactly what happened, especially with Dugan. Stopping the federal agencies or officers, directing them to the chief judge's chambers when the chief judge wasn't even at work at the time, going back to her courtroom, calling the defendant up and doing something with the defendant's case without telling the prosecuting attorney that she was doing it, directed them out the side door that the public can't go into, so they can leave without going out into the hallway where another agent was that she didn't know was out there, waiting. And then they find them out in the parking lot of the courthouse. She took affirmative steps to conceal the individual from the federal agents and to prevent his arrest. And it doesn't matter if it was ICE and he was an illegal alien, or if he was a bank robber, or somebody wanted on fraud. He was there. They were going to arrest him in the hallway, not in her courtroom. She should have let him do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. She knew that what they were there, and she wouldn't comply. So we haven't had, I guess, this direct of a case where you've got a judge basically protecting a criminally illegal. We certainly have had judges release them without bond, and that's created problems. You had that one illegal alien up in Lake County just recently. He's apparently the woman. I think her name was Boss. Was found in a garbage bin on his property, and that's probably part of the Safety Act thing. He was released immediately. So you're having them released here, but this is a whole new level of malfeasance in the judiciary. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what the answer is.
Now you have another Wisconsin judge that says she's going to refuse to hold court unless she's protected. How about don't violate the law?
Well, then you had Democrat protesters outside of that courtroom demanding that she be, that this all be turned away from Hannah Dugan, that she not be prosecuted. Hey, you know what? Thanks a lot for coming in on discussing this. Thanks for the affidavits or the sworn testimonies on these criminal complaints. I'm going to put them up online. Everybody should read them. We've got to end it right there. This is The Real Story with Jeannie Ives. Thanks for joining me tonight.
So many people enjoy a better, more pain-free life because of it. If you're dealing with everyday pain, it makes sense you'd want to try it first. Well, Relief Factor makes that pretty pain-free too with their 3-week quick start kit for only $19.95. An easy, affordable way to see how it could literally change your life, like it has mine. Relief Factor is a daily supplement that fights pain naturally. Developed by doctors, Relief Factor